Chelsea have gone massive, basically. Clear Lake Capital have pushed the boat out. See what I've done there? Spending more than £500 million on 16 signings since the start of last summer. The latest, a British transfer record, Enzo Fernandez from Benfica, £106.8 million. That was late on deadline day. And we're really asking you what you make of this aggressive approach from Chelsea. Are you delighted by it? Are you somewhat concerned by it? 03717 223344. If you want to share your views, you can text 81089. You can tweet us at talkSPORTKO. Earlier, on White and Jordan, Danny Murphy shared his view. He suggested that Chelsea spending will still leave them behind their rivals.
Whether they spend $1 billion or $500 million or none, I don't care. I just think they're overspending on players. You could go through the squad and look at a lot of the players and what they've spent, and I say you're overpaying for the quality you're getting. And is that squad... I mean, there's too many players for a start. That's going to be a problem for the manager we talked about the other week in terms of man managing. You know, keeping a lot of big egos in check is difficult for the best managers. You pick an 11 out of the Chelsea squad, it's not better than City.
Well, that's an interesting point from Danny Murphy there, speaking to White and Jordan. They're back on your airwaves tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. They're joined by Arsenal invincible Martin Keown. But it isn't about now, is it, this Chelsea spending? They've bought high potential and they expect in the future maybe some of these names that they weren't household names will become that.
And I think this is where our job comes into play to a certain extent, because we're very blessed in that we get the chance to frame an opinion that people may or may not disagree, but for the press, for our respective newspapers. And I think from listening to the club, from looking at what they do, I was with the club in pre-season last summer, and I had what I thought was an idea of their vision at the time, because they were bringing in older players like Koulibaly, like Sterling, more experienced players that had huge reputations in the game, and then they completely changed direction. But what I do think, and I joked about this the other day, I put on Twitter that Chelsea had...
Yeah, I joked and I put on Twitter, and that's where it all goes wrong.
That's where it all starts to go wrong.
It starts to go wrong because you're taking absolutely literally.
But I said, that look, Benfica signed Enzo Fernandez for £8.8 million in June. If they'd like to find a buyer for my house, I'd be very grateful. Well, exactly, it went done okay.
I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, people of Twitter. Thank you.
But the point is that what Chelsea have done, and I said it in the first section, there'll be people who come on, and I bet there are, who are calling in and saying, we disagree, you're talking rubbish. But if the owners of their football club turned round and said, we want to rip up the side in January, we want to bring in new players, bring the average age down, doesn't matter how much the targets we go for costs, we want them in. I don't know if you would find a single person calling in who would say, no, keep your money.
No,
what are you doing?
Absolutely. And the thing is that there is a philosophy behind it. They haven't. People say, they've just like a supermarket sweep, but it's not. There is a philosophy behind it. Now, what you don't know is whether the philosophy works or not. But that's true of any spending strategy at any club.
On the wider scale of things, how in Spain, and I know they've got some clubs who spent way beyond their limits. Italy, the same, would be viewing this when you think about the Bundesliga, maybe the Eredivisie Liga as well.
Do you know how to be viewing it? If you're a player, do you remember we did Joao Gomez, was it, last week? And we were all taking a sharp intake of breath because he decided to go to Wolves instead of Lyon. But that's the pull, because the Premier League is where everybody wants to be. It's where the wages are. It's where the best players are. It's where the best managers are.
We were talking about that last week, and I sort of delved into it a little bit deeper. The club that he turned down, I didn't quite realise how successful Lyon were. The club that he turned down, Lyon, have qualified for Europe in 24 of the last 26 seasons, and 16 of them were in the Champions League. And he went to Wolves, who would be bottom of our league if they hadn't scored in injury time against Everton. I just think that's incredible. And what has happened, and I think you said it last week, Hugh, is it's become like the Champions League, it's become the league that everyone wants to join.
Interesting point here raised by Andy. He says, problem is, I think he means Martin believes that football only relates to the top 6 of the Premier League, or maybe he's referring to you, Darren, excuse me. How does Wigan or Scunthorpe, for example, benefit from a Chelsea spending spree? And I think
Wigan don't need to be afraid of a Chelsea. I remember Wigan beating a Manchester City not so long ago in the FA Cup final.
Where they are now.
Well, where they are now. But if a Chelsea were to come for a Wigan player and that Wigan were to hold out for the full value of that player, then surely they benefit from the overspend. And so if Chelsea overspend, the only club they're hurting effectively, and I don't want to say hurting because for them, and I know this is the way they see it, they see these as investments. They don't see them as random players that they're buying in their mid-20s, like Chelsea did first time round under Roman Abramovich when Jose Mourinho was there. And they were buying, your Michael Essiens and your Didier Drogba's and whatnot.